For years, the Northern Territory News and its sister paper, the Sunday Territorian, have dominated Darwin's newspaper market. The NT News has also become known well beyond the Territory's borders for its larger-than-life front pages about crocodiles and UFOs. The colourful headlines have attracted fans and also critics who say Darwin's only daily should provide more serious reading. But the NT News argues it's giving readers what they want. Sarah Everingham reports.
It's bizarre and offbeat and a little bit wild, and I think that's great.
Our job is definitely to present the news, but there's, I don't think it's written anywhere that we have to be boring when we do it.
It's not every day a newspaper is the subject of an art exhibition, but tonight the NT News is being celebrated as a Northern Territory cultural icon.
I think it's a terrifically entertaining kind of newspaper, especially the front page.
Our front pages are often absolute classics that go around the world because they're presented in not just a newsy way, but in an artistic way.
The Twilight Zone section, UFOs, spacecraft, UFOs, and space rockets. 7 UFOs invade the top end.
For years, Darwin resident Tony Rutter has been collecting front-page posters as souvenirs of life in the top end.
The NT News hones in on a number of aspects of the territory of Darwin and the top end in particular that you don't find so much elsewhere.
The NT News first went to print in 1952, at the height of the Cold War, when Darwin's only newspaper was the union-run Northern Standard.
The Commonwealth was concerned at the time about the very strong pro-communist line which the Northern Standard was taking.
But within months of the Northern Territory News going to print, the Standard folded, and for decades the NT News has been the sole daily paper in Darwin. It started out as a small-time paper, but was soon snapped up by an up-and-coming media proprietor called Rupert Murdoch, who's retained control ever since. In the early years, the NT News was synonymous with the activist editor Jim Bowditch, who seemed to make headlines as often as he wrote them.
He was a great crusading editor. He took up particular causes. He was very interested in, for example, pushing for the Northern Territory to have greater powers of self-government.
Jim Bowditch took up causes both on and off the page. When 3 Malay pearl divers faced deportation, he personally intervened in the story and helped hide the men from authorities.
Darwin was in the hands of the unions, and I think he reflected that. And the unions were very much left-leaning. He reflected that as well. And on the whole, he was very much a reflection of the Northern Territory at the time.
But after Darwin was struck by Cyclone Tracy, one of Australia's worst natural disasters, a new era at the paper began.
The paper took it as one of its causes to be involved in the rebuilding of Darwin and in the rebuilding of a new society there as we saw it.
Today, the front page is more likely to feature crocodiles than politics.
20 or 25 years ago, the newspaper took itself more seriously. We still take ourselves seriously to a certain extent in that we run many of the so-called heavy stories. They're just not on the front page.
Hello, Nigel Adlam.
The long-time NT News journalist Nigel Adlam says the newspaper is now more in touch with its readers than ever.
Yeah, if you just give us some details, just give me a rundown.
But some argue the newspaper is clinging to an outdated image of Darwin.
As a sophisticated city, it's still raw in many ways, but a sophisticated city with a sophisticated, intelligent population who like to do some serious reading. So I think it's lifted its game somewhat, but I think there's a bit to go. in terms of providing informed discussion in the newspaper.
I wouldn't be so pompous and pretentious as to say Northern Territory News is a newspaper of record. It doesn't try to be, but it's still a very Northern Territory product, and we're quite proud of that.
Like it or not, the NT News is now part of the cultural fabric of the Northern Territory.
I hope the newspaper itself continues to provide that kind of local thought, local theme for some time.
Sarah Everingham reporting from the Top End.